everyone. Today I'm joined by John Ulzheimer, one of the leading experts on credit reporting, credit scoring, and identity theft. John has spent more than 33 years working inside the credit industry, including roles with Equifax, FICO, Experian, VantageScore, and Credit.com, making him the only recognized credit expert who actually comes from the credit industry itself. He's the author of 4 books on consumer credit and has been featured thousands of times in major outlets like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, NBC Nightly News, CNBC, and many others. John has also served as an expert witness in more than 800 credit-related lawsuits and is qualified to testify in both federal and state courts. John, that's a very impressive resume. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, John. I appreciate it.
If you don't mind, I'm going to get right into it. I've compiled a list of questions from our readers and social media followers that are related to credit, and obviously you're the best person to ask, and I'm ready to dive right into them if you are.
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Okay, the first question we have comes from a social media follower, and it is, what credit score do I need to get approved for a premium rewards credit card? That's like the travel credit cards, the annual fee credit cards, those type of cards.
The good ones.
Yeah.
Whenever I think of premium rewards credit cards, I think like a variety of the American Express cards and a variety like the Chase Sapphire card as a super popular one. And there are several others that have really high end rewards and then also come with annual fees. So credit card issuers are notoriously tight-lipped about their qualification criteria, but it's no secret that there are certain score ranges that are going to be more attractive to premium card issuers than other score ranges. So for a sense of relativity, let's start here. The average FICO score in the US, which blows people away because people think that the average FICO score is like 610, 620, 650. The average FICO score in the US, which varies ever so slightly over time, is around 715. And that I think that blows people's minds. But most people in this country have pretty good credit. And most people would consider a 715 FICO score to be a good score. Matter of fact, no shortage of articles from authoritative sources that will call anything in the 700s a good score, when in reality, in the low 700s is actually about average. If you want some of the really high end premium rewards cards, the ones made out of precious metal, you really need to be into the 700s, if not into the mid 700s. There are certain cards that are not going to be offers or available for consumers who have scores in the 600s. And certainly as you get lower into the they're not even on your radar. So what I always tell consumers is stop trying to guess what American Express's criteria is, and stop trying to guess what Chase's criteria is for their Sapphire rewards card. And just try to earn the highest credit score you possibly can. And then you're going to put yourself in this, what I call kind of the sweet spot, regardless of whether you're applying for a high end rewards credit card or a mortgage or an auto loan and you're trying to earn the lowest APR possible. Generally speaking, if you can get your scores to be 740, 750 or higher, then you're really put yourself in the sweet spot, regardless of what it is that you're applying for. Now, keep in mind that lenders, including card issuers, consider a variety of criteria when you apply for something. Although it seems like the only thing they care about is your credit score, that's certainly not the case. In fact, in the card world, the card issuer is required to determine your likelihood of being able to pay or your capability of paying. So you can have FICO 800 but have zero income and you're going to have a hard time getting a card. Conversely, you can have FICO 850 or a FICO 580 and a 6-figure income and also find yourself in an equally difficult position because you're really only checking one of the variety of boxes that you have to check. Don't get disappointed if you apply for a card and you're denied, and the denial notice you get from them has absolutely nothing to do with credit and has to do with income relative to outstanding obligation. That would mean that you have an income problem, not a credit problem. But yeah, if you get yourself in the FICO mid 700s and above, then at that point you're kind of showing, because there's really nothing you can qualify for at FICO 850 that you can't qualify for at FICO 800, that you can't qualify for at, say, FICO 780, 760. And while a card issuer's minimum scoring criteria or minimum threshold can certainly change over time because number one, there's no requirement that it be at any specific score point for any extended period of time. Number two, there's no requirement that all card issuers have the same minimum credit scoring requirements. So for card issuer A, their premium rewards card may require FICO 730. Card issuer B, their premium rewards card may require FICO 740 or FICO 720. So you just don't know. So that's why I always tell consumers that rather than trying to thread that needle across all the different card offers that are out there, work on the credit report because you only have three of them. Work on your FICO scores and get those as in the best position as you possibly can. And then when you pull the trigger, at least you feel confident that you've got your best foot forward for that particular application at that particular time.
Well, that's great. So it sounds like mid 700s is a good aiming spot, and but you also don't want to neglect the other things. You want to make sure you have a well-rounded file.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Look, tons of people ask me, is 750 good enough? Should I try for the 850? And again, at some point, you are in the eyes of a lender, you're almost void of credit risk. And really, when you start getting into the mid to high 700s, you're putting yourself into that very enviable position where card issuers look at you and they walk away with the understanding that this person pays their bills on time, they manage their debt properly, they don't excessively apply for credit. They're going to pay me back if I give them some form of offer of credit. So that's really the position that you want to be in because now you have card issuer A who understands that this consumer is probably getting a lot of really good competitive offers. And so if they come in with a lousy offer, they're very likely that you've got a better one already on the table. So
Mhm.
that's when you start seeing the really, really aggressive offers, the very high credit limits, the as low an interest rate as possible, even though there is no low interest rate on a credit card. And you start seeing the really good offers as far as the grace period for the balance transfers at
Mhm.
either 0% or purchases for the next 6 to 18 months at 0%. When you start kind of cobbling together those types of really attractive offer attributes, you can thank your really solid FICO score for that.
Well, that's great. Our next question is, how many credit cards is too many? And at what point does having a lot of credit cards, could it hurt your score?
I love this question because people think there's like this magic number floating around out there, and no one's willing to tell you what it is, right? Because no one ever comes up with whatever that number is. So people keep asking about it. There is no optimal number of credit cards. Seven isn't the right number. 12 isn't the right number. Two isn't the right number. This is what I always tell consumers. Let's kind of reverse engineer this thing rather than trying to throw a dart at some imaginary dartboard with numbers on it regarding how many credit cards you should have. Number one, if you properly manage credit cards, meaning that you don't treat them as an income and you don't excessively get into debt, even though you could, then you really can have as many credit cards as you want because you're not going to go crazy and charge up $200,000 of stuff on your cards this month. Here's the way I back your question, John. There's a very important metric in FICO's credit scoring systems called revolving utilization, and it's the relationship between the credit limits on your credit cards and the balances on your credit cards. And there's a lot of kind of myths floating around out there about what percentage you should keep to earn an optimal credit score. Really, that just is below 10%. The people who have the highest FICO scores in this country have a balance to credit limit ratio of around 7%. And FICO has published studies about this over the years. And so this isn't a secret what that kind of target percentage is. Some people say it should be 30%. Some people say it should be 50%. But what's true is that the lower that percentage, the better it is for your score, the more points you're going to earn for that particular metric.
Mhm.
So here's the answer for the right number of credit cards. For the next few months, or you can actually go back in time and look at whatever your average balances are on your statement for whatever period of time. And let's just say hypothetically that the average balance on your credit cards in aggregate is $5,000. And that seems pretty high, but it's going to make the math easy. We can do the math any way you want, depending on your your particular personal usage of credit cards. We know that we want that number, we want 5,000 to be no more than 10% of your credit limit, right?
Mhm.
So that means that you have to have $50,000 of credit limits on however many credit cards you have, whether that's 2 credit cards, 6 credit cards, 9 credit cards, doesn't matter. It's the aggregate credit limit that's important. And so if you are averaging around $5,000 a month in balances, which is what's showing up on your credit report, then you're going to want to have $50,000 of limits because obviously 10% of 50,000 is 5,000. And so you know that your normal organic usage of credit cards over time is never going to take you into a position where you exceed that 10% threshold, which is awesome. Yeah, you're going to have months where you may pay your property taxes with your credit card or pay for something that's very expensive with your credit card just because you want to earn points. And so that utilization ratio may spike just for that one particular month. But by and large, you're going to keep that ratio below 10% because of your average usage relative to your credit limits. And so back into it that way. Now, if you can achieve less than 10% balance to limit ratio with 3 credit cards, 3 is the answer to your question. If it takes you 7 or 8 credit cards to achieve that 10%, then that's the answer to your question. So we're all going to have a different answer, and it's all entirely based on what our average balance is because you want to keep that ratio as low as possible.
And that's a great answer because I think instead of focusing on the number of cards, you focus on what you need to do with those cards to keep a good credit score.
Now, the kind of the pushback I often get on this, John, is 7 or 8 credit cards. Are you crazy? What if they get stolen and somebody uses them fraudulently? Can't I run up massive balances? The answer is of course. If you can certainly, someone can come in and steal all your credit cards and use them fraudulently, but you have no liability. for Credit card fraud. You have the Fair Credit Billing Act caps your liability to $50, and all 4 of the credit card networks have zero liability policies. And so unless you never report fraud, you're never going to have to pay anything out of pocket because you have no liability. So you can check that one off the list. And the other one, about getting into excessive credit card debt, absolutely, I acknowledge that that is a potential issue. So again, this strategy is strictly for consumers who are good at managing their credit cards and are not going to get into a position where it's because they have 5 credit cards that they treat their credit limits as an income supplement and they go hog wild and they end up with thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars of credit card debt. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, is a credit card even right for me? Meaning, am I better off with like a secured card with a very low credit limit or a very limited number of credit cards with a very low credit limit in total? But then you run into that problem we talked about a minute ago about even modest purchases are going to yield a very high balance relative to your credit limits, and then it becomes a credit score problem.
Our next question is, and I think this is a common misconception because we get it a lot. Does carrying a small balance on my credit card instead of paying in full help my credit score in any way?
Yeah, so much like credit score myths, there's always a little kernel of truth that kind of blossoms into this very um, convoluted myth. So the balance to credit limit ratio, which is a very important factor in FICO scoring and has been for decades, and it's not a secret that it's a very important metric. If you look at the relationship between that ratio and the level of risk that you pose, believe it or not, there's an itty bitty little blip at the 1% mark of the graph where you actually earn more points for being at 1% utilization than you earn for being at 0% utilization. And so people have kind of glommed onto that. Unfortunately, someone who knew how to read a chart, get their hands on one of these charts and then went crazy. And then all of a sudden it became this myth about how you should always keep a balance on your credit card. And it's because of this issue of 1% versus 0%. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about um, an almost immaterial difference in the score, that it is factually accurate that having a tiny utilization ratio is better than having no utilization ratio. But really, we're talking about the difference between being fantastic and really fantastic. So there's really no difference in that respect. Here's the challenge with doing that, John, and that is how do you hit 1% month after month after month. And it's almost a part-time job to do something like that because you have to know what all of your credit limits are across all of your credit cards and then charge some amount at the right time during the month where they all hit your credit report in unison, where the balance sum equals 1% of whatever your credit limits are. Good luck with that. Because first off, you have no idea when your multiple credit card issuers are going to update their accounts with the credit bureau because they
Mhm.
don't all update on the same day. You may have card issuer A updates on the 5th, card issuer B updates on the 9th, card issuer C updates on the 23rd. And so their updates aren't even taking place at the same time. And so while theoretically you're like, oh, I'll just charge $1,000 and that would be 1% of my $100,000 in credit limits, it's impossible to do because you don't know when all of your balances are going to be reported. So here's what I always tell consumers: just pay off the darn thing. If you're able to get it down to 1%, then you can get it to 0%. And then you don't have to pay the tiny little amount of interest you're going to pay for carrying that really small balance month over month. And if you're at that point in your credit score journey, then you're already probably doing so well that you don't really need that minute amount of points.
Yeah, it sounds like the reward for that is not necessarily worth the interest.
Right, and you gotta do it month after month,
Mhm.
right? So because your credit score is like this living, breathing thing. It's not etched in stone for any specific period of time. Whatever your credit report looks like today isn't necessarily what your credit report is gonna look like tomorrow. So if your score is calculated today and it's 750, that doesn't mean tomorrow it's gonna be a 750, and it certainly doesn't mean by this weekend it's gonna be 750 because the data on your credit report is constantly being updated by your creditors. And so any new score that's calculated is going to take into account the new and different information. Again, if you've ever heard the term return on your investment, it's a
Mhm.
very, very small return on your investment. You can spend your time doing other things that are much more beneficial to kind of solidify your financial and credit score health, I can assure you.
Well, that's good to know that with the myth, there was some kernel of truth, and knowing everything always gives you a better picture of what you should do.
Agreed.
Our next question is: will applying for multiple credit cards at the same time hurt my credit score or my chances of approval?
Kind of almost think whoever asked this the answer before they even finished typing the message. So there's actually two questions there. Number one is the credit score impact, and number two, the how does it affect your prospects for being approved? So let's talk about the credit score impact. If you've done any research about credit scores, you'll know the more commonly used scoring system, FICO, that there are some tolerances built in the system regarding the treatment of credit inquiries. And a credit inquiry is a record of you applying for something and then that creditor pulling your credit reports. If you've ever heard of the term card inquiry, that's what that yields. You apply for a credit card, they pull the credit report, that leaves a card inquiry behind it. And there's obviously exceptions to that, but that's generally the rule. A credit card issuer's inquiry is coded as such. And so there's no mystery that you've applied for a credit card. So there's no chance that the credit scoring system accidentally thinks you're looking for an auto loan or accidentally thinks you're looking for insurance. The scoring system knows exactly what you've applied for, and it's a credit card. Credit card inquiries do not enjoy any of the tolerances built within FICO's scoring systems, or things like auto loans, student loans, mortgages. There is tolerance built in for those types of loans because you can rate shop
Yep.
for those types of loans. You don't rate shop for the best Visa or the best Discover card. It is what it is. So when you fill out that application, if you do it 5 times and you have 5 separate card issuers pulling your credit report, it's going to leave behind 5 card inquiries. And those 5 inquiries are going to be treated as independent searches for credit because they are. You actually did apply for 5 different credit cards. Now, it doesn't mean that your score is going to go down some uniform number. There's a lot of myths about the impact of inquiries. There's been a lot from people who call themselves experts, unfortunately. So there's no discrete or independent score point value. Inquiries aren't worth 8 points each, which means 5 applications means 40 points. That's not how it works. But generally speaking, you want to limit your applications for credit cards to be more in line with I've done research beforehand. I am comfortable pulling the trigger on this one card because I think I can qualify for it, and then doing it. So you kind of let your fingers do the walking or the shopping, if you will. And when you feel like you're in a good position, then you go ahead and pull the trigger on the application. Now, let's answer the second part of the question, which is, can it harm my prospects for being approved? And the answer is maybe. Again, card issuers don't generally disclose the criteria. We don't know across the thousands of card issuers in the country how many inquiries is too many in their eyes. But generally speaking, if you have too many inquiries on your credit report, if you are denied, it's not generally going to be because of the inquiries. Now that may play a part in the process, but generally speaking, people who are denied credit card applications are denied for a variety of reasons, and the variety of reasons can include too many inquiries. It is unusually denied simply because of a hard inquiry. Now, having said that, there are card issuers that if you have too many inquiries within X number of months, as a matter of policy, they will deny your application. So again, this is one of the reasons why if you ever hear people talk about how to how to manage your credit scores in such a way that earn solid scores, it's always things like pay your bills on time, stay out of credit card debt, and don't excessively shop for credit. Well, this is the third one. Don't excessively shop for credit, which means you're not loading up on too many of those hard inquiries. So again, plan in advance. Pick one or two that you think you can qualify for based on your understanding of your own credit standing, and then maybe pick the one that you think is the best for you as far as the rewards go, and then pull the trigger.
And I do think that was the context of that question. It was on a post about rate shopping and loans and other other items that do have that grace built in. Uh, they wanted to know if credit cards had the same grace and if other credit cards could see in real time that you were shopping around, basically.
When I was at FICO, and I worked kind of when the internet was evolving as this thing that it wasn't, a mystery, and it was not what it is today. It was kind of in that Gen 1 internet era. And what we started seeing was in our research into building scoring systems was this shift away from one inquiry, one loan, or one inquiry, one credit card, because people would generally go to the same lender that was geographically convenient for them, and they would apply for something. They would walk out of the branch with some form of credit. Well, the internet kind of blew that up, because now you can apply for 6 or 7 loans, 6 or 7 credit cards from the comfort of your home at 2 a.m. in your underwear with your coffee, and with lenders that you've never heard of in a state where you're never going to visit. So you ended up with a lot of inquiries, and not necessarily because the consumer was applying for a lot of credit. It became very evident that what was happening was consumers were rate shopping and becoming smarter about shopping for credit and allowing lenders to kind of compete against each other. And the consumer would theoretically walk away with the best possible term versus going to, good old Bill down the street at Federated, where you went for years and your dad went there and you played golf and you went to church with them and you were in the Rotary Club and that's why you went there. Well, so we saw a shift in that, and the data on credit reports, and that shift was a larger number of inquiries. And so rather than handling people for being smart rate shoppers, we had to adjust our scoring system so that there was this tolerance built in for methods of credit or forms of credit where you could actually shop around. And that would be things like auto loans, mortgages, and student loans. And so there was tolerance built in for those. But for credit cards, there is no tolerance, because if you fill out 5 credit card applications, you really are applying for 5 separate credit cards.
That makes sense. And I know we're short on time. So our last question, this one is not necessarily a direct question. It is kind of an amalgam of a lot of questions we've received because it's this certain time of year, and it's about holiday shopping.
Okay.
What are some ways to protect your credit if you plan to rack up credit card debt during the holiday shopping season, which I know a lot of people do? And so they just say, hey, I'm going to put it all on a credit card. But what would be a good way to mitigate that as best you can?
So I love the idea of putting as much stuff as you possibly can on a credit card. And this comes from somebody who has been preaching this for decades, that credit cards are a very, very safe method of commerce. Number one, it's not your money that you're spending, it's the bank's money.
Mm.
Number two, if the card is stolen or otherwise compromised, it's the bank's money being stolen, not your money. And number three is because of the Fair Credit Billing Act and the policies of the four credit card networks, you have basically no liability for fraud. Total capacity, massive buying power in the form of a piece of plastic or metal, zero fraud exposure. And by the way, rewards on top of that, cash back, airline miles, hotel points, whatever. So to me, it's like, it should still be top of the box, if you will, as far as the best method of credit. Oh, and by the way, interest is optional if you pay it in full every month. So unless you have a credit card that has an annual fee, and if you pay your balance in full every month, it's basically like this perpetual 30-day free loan you're getting. So I love this idea of putting everything on a credit card, not just for holiday shopping. But I get it. So if you're going to get into a large or unusual amount of credit card debt over the holiday season, then fair enough. So there's a couple of things that I would do if I were you. Number one, I would not go out and apply for an expensive loan in the first 2 or 3 months of the following year because the charges that you put on your card during the holiday shopping season, and I don't know about you, John, but that seems to grow every single year. We used to talk about Black Friday to the end of the year. Well, it seems like now it's kind of like it's backing away and backing away so that it's actually starts much earlier than Black Friday. And so the balances may actually start hitting their credit reports in December and certainly also in January. So that means any score impact is going to be in December and January. So I wouldn't apply for something loan wise very large in January or February. I like to be able to pay those cards off in full as quickly as possible. If you're not able to do that, then just whatever loan it is that you're interested in, whether it's auto or mortgage, kind of push it off month until you're able to get those balances down to where they normally would be. Scores would recover to where they normally are, or in the optimal world, you can pay off those balances and your scores are going to spike because your balances are going and those utilization ratios are at zero. And then you can go ahead and do your business shopping for new credit at your leisure at that point.
Well, that's great advice, and you're right about that, and you're also right about how early the Christmas season starts. I think I heard the first Christmas song before Halloween this year.
It drives my wife crazy. She doesn't like to see Christmas decorations before Thanksgiving decorations.
Our household is pretty split on it. Some of them love it, some of them don't. But
Kind of don't care. I actually like the longest holiday season possible.
I'm really good with it after Thanksgiving, though. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
But well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for all the insights, and we'll talk to you later.
My pleasure.